So Dennis, just like your iconic teammate, Dave Merrick, you arrive at Penn, your reputation precedes itself. Were there any adjustments that you had to make either on the track or off the track? And was there an aha moment where you knew you had arrived?
You know, I guess the aha moment for me in terms of arriving at the University of Pennsylvania took place during the summer because there was a pre-freshman program, very different from the pre-freshman program of today that some of the students might be familiar with. The program back then was targeted for low socioeconomic students, first generation students and the like. And it brought us to campus for the second session of summer school. We would take 2 regular summer courses, one math, one English, and we lived in the quad. And that gave me exposure to what it was like to be on my own, to be in a college setting, to be in the classroom, and it was wonderful. So by the end of that summer program, I felt quite comfortable on Penn's campus. I sort of worked through everything there was to know about Penn's campus. I even learned how to walk the streets of Philadelphia without fear of the police,
Dennis,
which was
you grew up in Harlem.
hey, but you know, Rizzo and his boys were unlike anything you would see in Harlem.
As a
And so,
resident of Philadelphia, I know.
Yeah, I mean, so for a Black kid in the 70s in Philadelphia, the police, you know, you just didn't want to mess with them. So that was that part of getting used to Penn. But as far as my teammates were concerned, or my future teammates, I think Tup smoothed the waters for me in ways that I didn't fully understand or appreciate until much later. But Coach Tuppenny invited me to cross-country camp. And the thing that is unique and significant about that my freshman year was the final year of freshman ineligibility for varsity competition. So prior to that, there had never been a freshman at cross-country camp, regardless of how good or talented the person was. Freshmen did not go to cross-country camp because they couldn't be on the varsity team. So Tup asking me to go to cross-country camp really sent a message to the varsity athletes. And once we got back from camp and my fellow freshmen learned that I had went to camp, it was like, hey, what about us? Why did we go to camp? Right. And then you had to explain that freshmen weren't allowed to go. So it's still like, why was I there? So, you know, I think that sort of eased the way for me. And I'm not even sure it was permissible under under Ivy League rules for me to go to camp, but hey, you know, it happened, so.
There we go. So Dennis, a lot of people in our audience that may not be runners, they often don't think of track as a team sport, but it is a team sport. And you shared a great story about one of your teammates, Dave McKee, and some information or guidance that he shared with you about being a great leader. And I want you to tell us about that story. And then we're going to hear from Dave as well as some of your other teammates.
Okay. Well, you know, team is very important to me. And I believe that every team member is required, is responsible for motivating every other teammate, you know, every member of the team. That's a responsibility that we share. The role of the captain, you know, in terms of motivating and inspiring, I think that role is even more important. It's paramount for a captain. And somehow I maybe missed the boat on that. And so one day, the fall, my senior year, and we're up at Van Cortlandt, and Dave says to me, I think it was after the race. I'm pretty sure it was after the race and not before. But Dave says to me, he says, you know, you're not a very good captain. And I'm thinking like, what do you mean I'm not a good, what does this kid want from me? You know, I'm the top finisher, you know, every week. I'm busting my butt in these races. What does he want from me? And then, you know, I thought about it. I didn't challenge him on it. I thought about it, and I'm thinking like, I think what he wants from me is he wants me. He wants me to be there. At the time, I wasn't there a whole lot. And part of the way that I rationalized it at the time was that going into senior year, I had a whole bunch of excess credits. And so the only thing I really needed to do was be a full-time student. Because I could have graduated at the end of, if I had gone to summer school at the end of my junior year, I could have graduated. But obviously I didn't want to do that, and I didn't do that. So I took the minimal number of courses to be full-time. It resulted in, I only had classes 2 days a week, I think for a total of 4 or 5 hours, not even a whole lot of hours, because one of those things was a seminar.
Right.
But being from New York and having a lot of races at Van Cortlandt, when we would go up to Van Cortlandt, I would say, oh, okay, Tup, I'm going to spend the weekend at home, visit my mom and family and stuff like that. And I'll see you on Tuesday night or Wednesday morning,
Nice, Dennis, nice.
Well, that was working for me.
Right.
And it wasn't like I wasn't working out, because when I was in New York, strangely, I was working out with the Manhattan guys.
And
But
we'll talk
I
about
wasn't,
the Manhattan guys in a little bit. Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, I wasn't working out with my team. And I realized that that's what was missing, that, I couldn't be an effective captain, couldn't be an effective leader without being there. And so, Dave gave me that wake-up call. I've been appreciative to him ever since, because it really helped me to focus on what it truly meant to have the pleasure of being the captain of that team.
Well, Dennis, you know what? We're going to hear from Dave and two of your other exceptional teammates right now.
Okay.
In a team sport, any athlete's story would be incomplete without the reflection of their teammates. Joining us today, we have three of Dennis's teammates: Dave McKee, Julio Piazza, and Jim Rafferty. Accomplished in their own right, all three were individual or team champions, school record holders, and in the case of Julio Piazza, also a longtime women's track and field coach as well as cross-country coach at the university. Dave will be the first to speak to us. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
When I was a sophomore, so Elt's 2 years ahead of me, he was the captain of the team. And, he was a good leader, natural person to be the captain. But, and we would go up to Van Cortlandt Park to race, not every Friday, but, a lot of Fridays, probably 3 out of the 4 Fridays once the season started. And Elt would not come back on the bus with us. And sometimes he wasn't at practice on Monday because he set up as a senior his classes. He just had classes Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And he, New York guy, he wanted to hang out up in New York. It bothered me because I came from a high school that was so team oriented. So I spoke with him one day and I told him, it's important, you're the captain, to be around. And to his credit, he changed. He stopped going to New York for the week, staying there. And that year we won the HEPs, we won the Big Five. So we were a really good team. And I think that was part of it.
And we've talked to coaches, we've talked to teammates about Dennis, and he always gives us that calm presence. But we don't have to name names. We don't have to talk about teams. Was there ever a competitor that you guys know that got under Dennis's skin, and by the end of the race, that competitor knew it as well? And Jim, I see you laughing in the background.
I really can't. I mean, I think back and, he, as Julie said, he had quiet confidence and he didn't take this personally. He wasn't out to crush anybody.
He helped lay the foundation. When I came to Penn, my freshman year, we couldn't run varsity, and we finished dead last at the indoor HEP scoring 2 points.
Wow.
And he was part of that turnaround, that put Penn track and field on the map, where I think with Jim and Elton, a lot of other guys, obviously, who wound up winning the outdoor HEPs every year for a decade. So that was quite a turnaround from just getting 2 points and finishing DFL, at the halves with 2 points. And I think, a lot of that has to do with, Elt being there and just, what he provided by himself. But I think, also the inspiration, who knows if Dave Merrick would have come,
Mhm.
to Penn, if we didn't have, I think, that strong nucleus there.
9 years ago, Elton was instrumental in Dr. Willis Cummins, who was a dentist, Penn alum in 1990, almost 100 years. And he was instrumental in getting Doc Cummings into the Penn Athletic Hall of Fame. Very proud of him for what he did there.
Any thoughts about what your teammates had to say about you?
Well, I very much appreciate their comments. They're all great guys. I love them dearly. I just wish that we had more opportunity to get together and to, just sit and chat. But whenever we do, it's a fun time.
Denis, we'll have to make more time. But Denis, speaking of team performances, you were a key member of Penn's incredible third place NCAA cross country championship team. It was the best performance ever by a Penn team, finishing third. Can you tell us what the impact of being on that team was for you and for your teammates?
Well, I'm going to blame that team and Coach Tuppeny for my bad behavior as a captain of the 73 cross country team. Because those guys, they were so good, so outstanding that I never had to worry about anything. I didn't know I was supposed to be a leader. I just followed them anyway. So I was the follower. That fall of 71, we start the year, Carl Thornton, Julio, O'Connor, a whole bunch of guys, Elliott, that team was loaded. They were undefeated in the regular season. My freshman team, we could challenge our varsity team. We were that good, and kudos to Tup, Moon, and Coach Gibbons. Those guys were excellent recruiters. So on my freshman squad, I think everybody on that team was some kind of champion, a state champion, a city champion, a conference champion. We were all champions, and we had an undefeated season, undefeated regular season. And so, you look at the fall of 71 and we're thinking like, oh my God, we got two undefeated teams. You can only have so many people on the squad. By the time you get to HEPS, you're only going to have 9 people competing. And so and Dave Merrick was coming in as a freshman. So it's like Tup's problem wasn't that he didn't have talent. He had too much talent. How is he going to keep all these guys satisfied? How is he going to keep them on the team? Regrettably, we did lose some people because there wasn't room. But that 71 team, that was a dream team. A couple of things happened with me at the end of freshman year. And that was that, I was fortunate enough blessed really, to compete in the Martin Luther King Dream Mile. That is the meet with Marty LaCory and Jim Ryan. And, I was a part of that. I ran 4:03.9, a school record. Luckily, Carl Thornton, because the Dream Mile was late in the year. So it didn't give Carl an opportunity to come back and yet again take the record away from me. As we had all that year, we were alternating records. The freshman race would go off, new school record. Varsity race, Carl takes the record back. We must have did that 4 or 5 times throughout the year. And so the other thing that year was going to nationals in the steeplechase and setting another school record. And so the result being that based on those successes, my focus was changing. Prior to that, and all through high school, certainly, I really considered myself to be a cross-country athlete. The track stuff was really for fun, but it was cross-country where I shined. And so as a result of that spring of my freshman year, I started thinking like, maybe I could be a good track athlete. And so Tup and we talked about it, and Tup agreed. I begged him for it, but he did agree that I could play a supporting role with the cross-country team. And because the team was very, very strong. And that the agreement would be that I would run basically as the fifth guy. But also, we would never lose a race with me as the fifth guy. If I needed to move up, I would move up. Tup was okay with that. Carl was our captain. To the best of my knowledge, Carl, Julio, I mean, everybody else was supportive of that, as long as we weren't losing any races. And so I was able to have that luxury because of the talent and the strength of the other guys on that team, and, the few times that I needed to not be fifth, I wasn't fifth. But for the most part, if anybody looks back at the results of those races, for the most part, I was the fifth man, and we were winning. And many of those races were, perfect score, 15 points in cross country, low score wins. Even that year at the HEPS, we won the HEPS with a score of 19 points. I don't think that's ever been repeated by an Ivy team. And, we were undefeated in the regular season. Lost to Villanova at the Big Five, lost to Villanova at the IC4As, but at Nationals, we finished third, Villanova finished fourth. It was a great season.
I feel so bad about Villanova, Denis, in that race.
I just want to share two races with you.
Please do.
The first is the indoor 1974 indoor nationals, running the DMR. Pete Pozeski, Howie Schwab, Jim, Broadway Rafferty, and myself, we were the foursome. But I also want to give a shout out to Peter Chris, because I actually took Peter's place on the anchor that day. So I was fortunate to do that, and I thank Peter for allowing me to do that. But that race, everybody, all of us, we ran our hearts out. It was such a team effort. Pete led off it with the half, 11 laps to the mile track, Cobalt Arena, tight track, a very tight track. The athletes were bunched. Peter was fighting all the way. And he ran one of his best races that day, handed off to Howie. I think Pete handed off in third or so. And Howie, was running aggressively. But I think somebody went by him, or maybe two people went by him or something like that. And he found himself a little further back, but he turned it on. The later stages of his leg, I mean, he was unbelievable. He handed off in first place, gave the baton to Jim, who Jim went on to run his best, I think it was the best race of his life, up to that point. And he handed off I'm not quite sure what the position was, but he ran a 3:01, which was an excellent time on an 11 lap to the mile track. Right. It was superb. And I got the anchor and was able to move up, and actually found myself at the gun lap. I think I was either leading at the gun lap or shortly thereafter. But I was pretty well spent. And we ended up in second place to Missouri. Chris Mullins was running their anchor. Chris went wide as without falling off the track. By the time I even saw Chris, he was already by me with less than 5 yards in the race. And we leaned, but Missouri got the lean. But that was a great race. The second race that I want to mention is the outdoor HEPS from '74. We were in contention for yet another HEPS title. We were primed to win. We all thought we could win, but everybody needed to do their job. And I was running the steeple. I was geared. I was psyched. I was ready to set not only break my existing school record, but I wanted to destroy it. I wanted to be a recognized national contender for the NCAAs in the steeple. And I was ready to run the low 830s, if not dip into the 20s. I came off of that first water jump. I propelled myself about 1.5 feet beyond the water jump pit. And anybody who's run the steeple, you know that you're used to landing in the water to break your fall. I was so far beyond that pit. I hit the track. I sprained my ankle. Ran the rest of the race with a sprained ankle. Hobbled across the finish line. I got my school record though, 8:45. It wasn't what I was looking for,
Right.
but it was a pretty darn good performance. You know, and after the race, I was the most miserable person you could ever want to be around. I was fearful that I had destroyed the team's chances of winning HEPs.
And you
But
didn't.
Jim Rafferty came to the rescue again. He ran such a great 3 mile, you know, and his points in the 3 mile secured the win for us. And so we were just elated when he crossed the finish line.
You know what, Dennis? I'm so glad that you emphasized the team aspect of the sport, because I think
Well,
when
that's
we
what it's all about.
It is. It's true. When we look back, you remember not only what you did, but you have a better recollection and a more fond memory of what you did with other people.